Dr. Jack Morgan had spent 15 years studying the behavior of the enormous apex predators of Proxima Centauri. The Proximan stalkers, as humans called them, were 12-foot-tall feline creatures with 6 limbs and twin rows of teeth that could shear through titanium. Yet despite their fearsome appearance and deadly capabilities, Jack had documented dozens of encounters where stalkers allowed humans to approach their cubs, something they permitted no other species to do. Today, he stood at the edge of the research outpost's boundary, watching as a mother stalker groomed her 3 cubs less than 30 feet away. His colleague, Dr. Lisa Reed, stood beside him, her scanner quietly recording data. "They're getting more comfortable with each visit," Jack whispered. "This is the 4th time this month she's brought the cubs to the perimeter." Lisa nodded. "The males are doing it too." Tom reported a male stalker dropping a wounded herbivore near his survey site yesterday. Just dropped it and walked away. "Almost like an offering," Jack finished. "Yes, I've seen similar behavior. It doesn't make evolutionary sense. We're not part of their ecosystem. We've been on this planet for less than 2 decades. The mother stalker looked up suddenly, her 6 golden eyes focusing on the 2 humans. Both scientists froze. Then, to their astonishment, she rose and nudged one of her cubs toward them with her snout. "Jack," Lisa breathed. "Is she?" "I think she wants us to approach," he said incredulously. "This contradicts everything we know about apex predator behavior." With extreme caution, Jack took a step forward. The mother stalker made a rumbling sound. Not a growl, but something softer. The cub stumbled forward on its 6 legs, awkward but curious. Back at the research station that evening, the team gathered to discuss the unprecedented encounter. "It's happening all over the planet," said Dr. Mike Brown, their xenobiologist. "Reports are coming in from every human settlement. The stalkers are approaching humans specifically, allowing contact with their young. They're bypassing other alien species from the coalition. It's just us. Could it be something about our scent?" asked Tom Willis, the junior researcher. Lisa shook her head. "We've tested that theory. Nothing unique enough to cause this level of trust." Jack was staring at the holographic display of stalker brain scans. Something was nagging at him, a pattern in the neural activity he couldn't quite place. "What if," he said slowly, "they recognize something in us? Something familiar?" "That's impossible," Mike scoffed. "We evolved on completely different planets, in different solar systems." "I know it sounds crazy," Jack continued, "but look at these neural patterns when they interact with humans versus other species." He pulled up the comparative scans. The difference was subtle but undeniable. The pleasure and recognition centers in the stalkers' brains activated differently around humans. "Tomorrow," Jack said, "I want to try something. The cubs are approaching maturity. If I'm right, we're about to witness something that will change our understanding of interspecies relationships forever." As night fell on the alien world, Jack couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the mother stalker and her cubs, about the neural patterns, about the impossibility of what he was beginning to suspect. Outside his window, he could hear the distant calls of stalkers in the darkness, calls that for some reason humans had never truly understood, had never filled them with the primal fear such predators should evoke. The morning brought a heavy mist that shrouded the research station in an ethereal glow. Jack had gathered the team at the edge of the compound, his equipment prepared for the experiment. "This might sound ridiculous," he explained, "but I've been reviewing the ancient Terra files on extinct predators, specifically on big cats." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "The stalkers aren't cats, Jack. They're not even mammals as we define them." "I know, but listen, what if convergent evolution is more powerful than we thought? What if certain predatory behaviors transcend planetary boundaries?" He activated a device on his wrist. "I synthesize a specific frequency pattern based on something our ancestors used to observe." "Which is?" Tom asked. "Purring," Jack replied. "Earth's big cats, lions, tigers, even house cats, all shared this vocalization. It signaled contentment, safety, But more importantly, it triggered a specific neural response in other mammals, including humans. Mike looked skeptical. So you think alien predators evolved to purr like Earth cats? That's quite a stretch. Not exactly, Jack said. But look at these comparison scans. The harmonic pattern in stalker vocalizations when they're with their cubs. It's remarkably similar to the purr frequency of ancient Earth felines, and our brains react to it in much the same way. Before anyone could respond, a familiar rumble emerged from the mist. The mother stalker appeared, her cubs now following confidently behind her. Jack stepped forward, alone this time. "Jack," Lisa hissed, "we don't have enough data for this kind of contact yet." He ignored her, walking slowly toward the massive predator. When he was 15 feet away, he activated the device. A low, rhythmic sound emerged. The synthesized purr. The effect was immediate. The mother stalker's posture relaxed, her pupils dilated. And then, astonishingly, she responded with her own vocalization, a deep, rumbling purr that they had previously classified as a contentment sound. "My God," whispered Mike. "They're communicating." Jack continued forward until he was just 5 feet from the largest cub. Slowly, he extended his hand, palm down, a non-threatening gesture. The cub approached, sniffed his fingers, and then, to everyone's astonishment, rubbed its massive head against Jack's hand. "It's not just similar behavior," Jack called back to his colleagues. "It's neural resonance. Somehow, across the gulf of space, predator and prey recognition patterns evolved similarly. Our brains and theirs. They're compatible in ways we never imagined." The mother stalker watched calmly as Jack interacted with her cub. Then she did something even more remarkable. She lay down, rolling slightly to expose her throat in what any Terran biologist would recognize as a sign of trust. Later, as the team processed the mountain of data they'd collected, the implications began to sink in. "If you're right," Lisa said, "this changes everything we thought we knew about evolutionary psychology and xenobiology." Jack nodded. "The universe just got a lot less random. What if certain neural patterns, certain behaviors, are somehow inevitable? What if the way minds develop isn't just a product of local evolution, but follows universal principles?" Tom looked up from his console. "The Coalition Council is going to want immediate reports. This could affect human-alien relations across the board." "It's more than that," Jack replied, staring at the holographic model of the stalker brain rotating above the table. "We always assumed we were alone in how we think, how we process. But what if we're not? What if minds, regardless of origin, share fundamental structures?" Outside, more stalkers had gathered at the perimeter, as if sensing the breakthrough that had occurred. For the first time since humans had arrived on this world, the boundary between species seemed less like a wall and more like a doorway. The next morning, Coalition representatives arrived by shuttle. The news had spread quickly through the interstellar communication network, and the implications were too significant to ignore. Dr. Emily Tanner, the Coalition's chief xenobiologist, wasted no time with pleasantries. "Show me everything," she demanded as she swept into the research station. Behind her followed representatives from 3 other Coalition species, a Tellurian with its crystalline exoskeleton, a pair of Vexian traders with their characteristic blue skin, and a Meridian diplomat whose hovering form shimmered with bioluminescence. Jack led them to the observation deck where the team had set up a display of their findings. "As you can see," he explained, pointing to neural comparison charts, "the stalkers' recognition patterns when encountering humans show striking similarities to how they respond to their own kind, but different from how they respond to any other species we tested." "Including us," noted Krell, the Tellurian representative, its voice a melodic chime. "We've been on this planet for trade purposes for nearly 40 solar cycles. The stalkers have always avoided us." Emily studied the brain scans intently. "These activity patterns in their recognition centers, they're remarkably similar to patterns we've documented in Terran apex predators. The extinct ones, I mean." "Exactly," Jack said eagerly. And there's more. Lisa, can you show them the vocalization comparisons? Lisa activated a holographic display showing sound wave patterns. The stalker's comfort vocalizations operate at frequencies between 25 and 150 Hz, almost identical to the purring range of Earth's big cats, and when we played synthesized purrs, they responded in kind. That could be coincidence, said the Meridian diplomat, Orinth, his form pulsing skeptically. One similarity might be coincidence, Jack acknowledged, but we've documented over 50 distinct behavioral and neurological parallels between stalkers and Earth's extinct apex predators. The mathematical probability of such extensive parallels evolving independently is astronomically low. Emily's expression grew thoughtful. What about other predator species in the coalition territories? Has anyone checked for similar patterns? That's where things get even more interesting, Mike interjected. We started running comparisons against the xenobiology database. Humans have documented unusual tolerance from apex predators on 7 other worlds, none of which show the same tolerance toward other coalition species. The revelation sent a ripple of unease through the alien representatives. You're suggesting some kind of interstellar kinship between humans and predatory species? Asked Ziv, one of the Vexian traders. Not kinship exactly, Jack clarified, but perhaps neural resonance, a fundamental compatibility in how our brains process certain social cues. Outside, the number of stalkers gathering at the perimeter had grown. Nearly 30 of the massive predators now lounged or paced just beyond the boundary markers, occasionally calling out with those distinctive rumbling vocalizations. I'd like to see this interaction firsthand, Emily declared. Jack led the group to the perimeter. The non-human representatives stayed several paces back, their body language betraying various degrees of fear and fascination. As Jack approached the boundary, 3 stalker cubs bounded forward, now comfortable enough with human presence to approach without their mother's encouragement. Emily followed cautiously. They're treating us like we're the same species, she whispered as a cub rubbed against her leg, a behavior identical to that of Earth's large felines. Not the same species, Jack corrected, but perhaps recognized, familiar in some fundamental way that transcends planetary boundaries. The mother stalker approached, her massive form dwarfing the humans. She lowered her head, not in threat, but in greeting. Jack reached out, and with a gentle touch that defied all conventional wisdom about approaching apex predators, scratched behind her ear ridge. The stalker's eyes closed in apparent pleasure. From the safety of the observation deck, the alien representatives watched in stunned silence. In all our centuries of interspecies relations, Orinth said finally, we have never witnessed anything like this. 3 days later, Jack stood before the hastily assembled Interspecies Relations Committee. Representatives from 27 coalition worlds filled the conference room at the colony's administrative center. The atmosphere was tense, excitement mingled with deep unease. The data is conclusive, Jack stated, his voice steady despite the pressure. Humans share neurological recognition patterns with apex predators across multiple worlds. These patterns facilitate a level of trust that defies conventional evolutionary theory. Admiral Ben Harris, Earth's military liaison to the coalition, leaned forward. Dr. Morgan, let's cut to the chase. Are you suggesting that humans have some kind of predator affinity, some universal connection to the most dangerous species in the galaxy? Jack hesitated, aware of the implications. The evidence suggests a neural compatibility, yes, but it's more complex than simple affinity. It appears to be mutual recognition. Images appeared on the screens around the room. Humans interacting peacefully with various predator species from across coalition space. A woman stroking the venomous spine crest of a Taurian river. A man sitting surrounded by pack-hunting Syrian shadowleapers. A child offering food to a Deneb ravager. In every documented case, Jack continued, these predators demonstrate selective tolerance toward humans, not toward Tellurians, not toward Vexians, not toward any other coalition species. Just us. Dr. Emily Tanner stepped forward to join him. We've analyzed historical records and found something extraordinary. Human explorers have frequently reported unusual safety among dangerous fauna on newly discovered worlds. We dismissed these as exaggerations or anomalies. Now we believe they were early evidence of this phenomenon. This raises concerning questions, said Ambassador Trell, the Meridian representative to the coalition. If humans share neurological patterns with the galaxy's most efficient killers, what does that say about humanity itself? A murmur swept through the alien representatives. Jack could see the shift in their posture, the subtle recoiling that spoke of instinctive fear. Admiral Harris' expression darkened. Ambassador, if you're implying. I merely note that this discovery contextualizes certain historical observations. Trell interrupted smoothly. Humans achieved spaceflight remarkably quickly after industrialization. Your species advanced from primitive technology to interstellar travel in less than 500 years, a pace unmatched by any coalition member. Our adaptability has always been our strength, Harris countered. Indeed, Trell said. And now we learn that the galaxy's apex predators recognize something in you. Something kindred. The tension in the room thickened. Jack realized they were treading into dangerous territory, the kind that could affect humanity's standing in the coalition. If I may, Lisa interjected, stepping to the presentation console. We've been looking at this from only one perspective. Yes, predators recognize something in humans, but equally significant is what humans recognize in them. She displayed new neural scans, human brains this time. When humans interact with these predator species, we see activation in ancient brain structures associated with kinship recognition, structures that predate our evolution as a species. It's not just that they recognize us, we recognize them. Jack picked up her thread. Throughout human history, we've demonstrated unusual ability to domesticate predator species on our homeworld. From wolves to big cats, humans formed bonds with creatures that by all evolutionary logic should have been our enemies. Are you suggesting humans domesticated predators across multiple worlds? Krell asked incredulously. No, Jack replied. I'm suggesting something more fundamental. What if certain neural patterns, certain ways of perceiving and processing, arise independently across the galaxy because they're evolutionarily advantageous? What if the very structure of sentient minds follows patterns as universal as the laws of physics? The commotion in the committee room had barely settled when an urgent message arrived from the research station. Tom's face appeared on the main screen, his expression a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Jack, you need to get back here. Now. The stalkers, they're displaying completely new behavior. Within the hour, Jack, Lisa, and Dr. Emily Tanner had returned to the research station, accompanied by Admiral Harris and representatives from several coalition species. What they found left them speechless. Outside the perimeter, nearly 100 stalkers had gathered. They sat or stood in concentric circles, as if in attendance at some primal gathering. In the center, the mother stalker whom Jack had first approached stood beside something unusual, a large, freshly killed herbivore. They'd been like this for 2 hours, Tom explained. They're waiting for something. For us, I think. Jack studied the scene, his mind racing. It's a gift. An offering. That's ridiculous, one of the Tellurian scientists scoffed. Predators don't share resources outside their immediate social group. It contradicts basic survival principles. Unless, Jack said slowly, they've recognized us as part of that group. Without waiting for permission, Jack stepped beyond the perimeter. Admiral Harris made a move to stop him, but was restrained by Emily. Let him go, she said quietly. This is what he's been working toward for 15 years. Jack approached the center of the circle. The stalkers watched him, their six-eyed gazes tracking his movement with predatory focus, yet without hostility. When he reached the mother stalker, she made a low rumbling sound and nudged the kill toward him with her snout. The significance struck him like a physical blow. This wasn't just acceptance, It was inclusion. The stalkers were treating humans as members of their extended pack. Jack knelt beside the kill and, following instinct, placed his hand on it. Acknowledging the gift, the mother stalker made that distinctive purring sound, and throughout the gathered predators, the sound was echoed, 100 massive alien creatures purring in harmony. "They're inducting us into their social structure," Jack called back to the astonished observers. "This is a ritual. They're making us family." Back inside the research station, the implications unfolded with dizzying speed. "If we're right about this neural resonance," Emily said as they reviewed the footage, "it could explain one of humanity's greatest evolutionary mysteries: how we survived on Earth long enough to develop civilization." Admiral Harris looked intrigued. "What do you mean?" "Think about it," Jack explained. "Early humans were physically weak compared to the predators of prehistoric Earth. We weren't the strongest, fastest, or most numerous. By all logic, we should have been easy prey for saber-toothed cats and dire wolves. Yet somehow, we not only survived but thrived." Lisa continued the thought. What if this neural compatibility gave our ancestors an edge? What if prehistoric predators sensed something in humans that made them hold back, just enough for us to gain a foothold? And then we domesticated them. Emily added, "Wolves became dogs. We formed alliances with the very predators that should have hunted us to extinction." The Vexian representative, who had remained quiet until now, finally spoke. "If what you suggest is true, it would mean humans evolved alongside predators in a unique symbiotic relationship, one that somehow transcends planetary boundaries." "More than that," Jack said, his voice hushed with the weight of realization. "It would mean that what we're seeing with the stalkers isn't new at all. It's the resumption of an ancient pattern, one that played out on Earth and is now repeating across the stars." Outside, the stalkers remained gathered, their purring a constant background hum that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of the research station, a sound that, somehow, felt like coming home. Word of the stalker gathering spread across human colonies faster than official channels could control. Within days, similar reports began flooding in from human outposts on other worlds. On Tav City E, the venomous striders, 8-legged predators the size of horses, were approaching human settlements. On Epsilon Eridani, the airborne shrikes that had previously attacked anything moving on the planet's surface now circled human expeditions without hostility. The Coalition Council called an emergency session as the implications rippled through interstellar politics. "This fundamentally alters the balance of power," declared Ambassador Trell during a closed session. "If humans can safely access regions dominated by apex predators, regions that remain deadly to the rest of us, they gain unprecedented access to resources." Jack found himself unexpectedly central to these discussions, pulled from his research into the realm of interspecies diplomacy. He sat now in a high-security briefing with Admiral Harris and Earth's coalition representatives. "They're afraid," Harris stated bluntly after sharing intelligence from the council meeting. "Not just of the predators, but of what this means about us. We need to be careful how we proceed," said Ambassador Maria Chen, Earth's senior diplomat. "This discovery could be perceived as threatening rather than beneficial." Jack shook his head in frustration. "This isn't about advantage. It's about understanding our place in a larger pattern of life. If we exploit this connection, we risk destroying it." Before anyone could respond, Lisa rushed into the room, bypassing security protocols with an emergency override. "Jack," she said breathlessly, "you need to see this." She activated the display, showing a live feed from the research station. The stalkers had not dispersed as expected. Instead, their numbers had grown to nearly 500, an unprecedented gathering of apex predators that should have been competing, not cooperating. "That's not all," Lisa continued. "They're building something." The camera zoomed in to show stalkers dragging large branches and vegetation, arranging them in a complex structure just outside the perimeter of the research station. "My God," Jack whispered, "they're constructing a nest, a communal nest. I thought they were solitary hunters except during mating season, Harris said. They are, Jack confirmed. This behavior has never been documented before. Ambassador Chen leaned forward, studying the images. What does this mean, Dr. Morgan? Jack's mind raced through the possibilities. I think they're creating a shared space, a halfway point between their territory and ours. A cultural exchange site, Lisa suggested. Something like that, Jack agreed. They're intelligent. We've always known that. But this suggests a level of abstract thinking we hadn't anticipated. They're not just accepting our presence, they're adapting to it, evolving their social structure in response. Harris's communication device chimed with an urgent alert. His expression grew grave as he read the message. We have a situation, he announced. The Coalition Council has voted to implement containment protocols. They're sending ships to establish quarantine boundaries around all affected planets, including this one. Quarantine, Jack echoed incredulously. On what grounds? They're classifying this as a potential biological contagion, calling it predator synergy syndrome. They're concerned it could spread to other species or ecosystems. That's absurd, Lisa protested. This isn't a disease. It's a natural compatibility. Natural or not, Harris replied grimly. The council is spooked. And a spooked council means restricted access and military presence. Jack stared at the screen showing the stalkers' continued construction. Something precious and unprecedented was happening. A bridge forming between species separated by light years of space and billions of years of evolution. And now, fear threatened to sever that connection before they could fully understand it. We can't let them do this, he said firmly. Not when we're on the verge of something revolutionary. What exactly do you propose, Dr. Morgan? Ambassador Chen asked cautiously. Jack turned to face them, his decision already made. I'm going to spend the night in the stalker's nest. Alone. If I can demonstrate that this relationship goes beyond tolerance to actual cohabitation, even the council can't ignore the implications. Harris looked alarmed. That's too risky. These are still apex predators, Morgan. Neural compatibility or not, one wrong move could get you killed. Actually, Lisa interjected, it might be our best option. A human voluntarily entering predator territory and returning safely would directly contradict the contagion theory. It would demonstrate agency on both sides. As they debated, the feed showed something new. Stalker cubs playing in the half-constructed nest, tumbling and wrestling in full view of the research station. The sight silenced everyone in the room. They're showing us their vulnerability, Jack said softly. Their future. If that's not trust, I don't know what is. The night air was cool as Jack approached the stalker nest alone. He carried no weapons, no protective gear, only a small recording device, and his unshakable conviction that what was happening transcended the boundaries between species. The gathered stalkers parted to let him pass, their massive forms creating a living corridor that led to the center of the nest they had constructed. The structure was more complex up close. Interwoven branches forming chambers and passages, lined with soft vegetation that reminded Jack of the nesting materials used by Earth's great apes. In the central chamber, the mother stalker waited. Beside her sat an enormous male, presumably her mate, and their 3 cubs. They watched as Jack entered their space, their 6 eyes gleaming in the dim light. Jack sat down cross-legged before them, maintaining eye contact with the adult stalkers. Slowly, deliberately, he began to speak, not in any alien language they might understand, but simply to establish his presence through sound, as they did with their purring. I don't know if you can understand what's happening between our kinds, he said softly. I barely understand it myself. But I think, somehow, we recognize each other across the gulf of space and time. The male stalker made a deep rumbling sound and stretched out one massive, clawed limb. Jack remained still as the creature's paw, capable of disemboweling prey with a single swipe, gently touched his shoulder. The touch became a slow, cautious exploration, the stalker examining Jack's form as one might inspect a newfound relative. Through the night, Jack observed and was observed. The cubs approached, more boldly than before, climbing over him with playful curiosity. Adult stalkers came and went, each seeming to take measure of the human in their midst. Some brought food, raw meat that they set before him in apparent offering. Jack recorded everything, speaking quietly into his device to document each interaction. As the hours passed, his scientific observations gradually gave way to more personal reflections. "There's something here that goes beyond biology," he whispered as a cub slept curled against his side. "Something almost spiritual. As if, in recognizing each other, we're remembering something long forgotten." Dawn was breaking when Jack noticed a change in the stalkers' behavior. They grew alert, heads turning toward the east. Jack followed their gaze and saw the reason. A coalition quarantine ship descending through the atmosphere, its engines creating a distant roar. The stalkers reacted not with fear, but with protective positioning. They formed a loose circle around Jack, facing outward, a defensive formation he had seen in Earth's wolves and lions. "They're protecting me," he realized aloud. "They see the ship as a threat, and they're including me as one of their own." His recording device chimed with an incoming transmission. Lysa's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Jack, coalition forces are landing 5 miles east of your position. They're deploying containment fields. You need to return to the station immediately." He looked at the stalkers surrounding him, at the cubs now hiding in the nest's deeper chambers. What had begun as scientific curiosity had become something far more profound, a reconnection with something primal and true. "Tell them to stand down," Jack replied firmly. "I'm bringing guests." Before Lisa could respond, Jack rose to his feet. He made a soft chirping sound, a vocalization he had observed the stalkers use when calling their young. The mother stalker approached him, her massive head level with his chest. With slow, deliberate movements, Jack placed his hand on her forehead, establishing physical contact. Then he began walking toward the research station. After a moment's hesitation, she followed. Behind her came her mate, their cubs, and gradually the entire assembly of stalkers. By the time they reached the perimeter, coalition forces had arrived, armored personnel with containment equipment, led by Ambassador Trell himself. They froze at the sight of Jack walking calmly at the head of hundreds of apex predators. "Ambassador," Jack called out, "I'd like to introduce you to my friends." The standoff lasted seconds that felt like hours. Then Admiral Harris stepped forward from among the coalition forces. "Stand down," he ordered. "Everyone stand down." As the soldiers reluctantly lowered their weapons, Jack continued walking until he stood directly before Trell. "These aren't mindless beasts, Ambassador. And what's happening isn't a contagion. It's recognition. Acceptance, something your quarantine can't contain because it's written into the very structure of life itself." Trell's form shimmered with agitation. "The Council has made its decision, Dr. Morgan." "Then they made it without all the facts," Jack replied. He held up his recording device. "I've spent the night in the stalker's nest. They shared food with me, protected me, accepted me as one of their own. Not because of some biological anomaly, but because on some fundamental level we understand each other." He gestured to the stalkers still following peacefully behind him. "Look at them, Ambassador. Really look. They're not here to threaten. They're here to connect." As if understanding his words, the mother stalker nudged one of her cubs forward. The small creature, though still the size of an earth tiger, approached Ambassador Trell without fear. It stopped just short of the hovering meridian, looking up with innocent curiosity. Something shifted in Trell's demeanor, a subtle change in his bioluminescent patterns that indicated deep thought. "Perhaps," he said finally, "the Council should reconsider its approach." In the days that followed, the quarantine order was cautiously modified. Research teams, human and non-human alike, were permitted to study the phenomenon under controlled conditions. The stalkers remained near the research station, gradually allowing other species to approach under human guidance. Jack stood at his favorite observation point, watching as a Tellurian researcher cautiously offered food to a stalker cub while its mother watched with tolerant attention. Beside him, Admiral Harris contemplated the scene. "You know what this means for humanity's future in the Coalition, don't you?" Harris asked. Jack nodded. "We're not just explorers anymore. We're intermediaries, bridges between worlds. Some will still fear what this connection means," Harris warned. "The implications that humans share something fundamental with the most dangerous creatures in known space." Jack smiled, watching as more stalkers emerged from the forest edge, approaching the growing interspecies gathering with cautious curiosity. "Maybe that fear isn't misplaced," he replied. "Maybe humans are dangerous in our own way. But what they're beginning to understand is that danger and gentleness aren't mutually exclusive. The most formidable protectors are often the most dangerous when threatened." He gestured toward the stalkers, the researchers, the tentative connections forming between species that should never have found common ground. "That's the real discovery here, Admiral. Not just why predators let humans near their cubs, but why we let them near ours. Because deep down, across the stars and beyond the boundaries of worlds, we recognize kindred spirits. Survivors, protectors, family." In the gathering dusk, a chorus of purrs and human voices rose together, the first notes of a conversation billions of years in the making, finally resumed among the stars.